This is section 4, which is all about playing hands and knowing how to play your hands. Lesson 1 is going to be talking about how you guys should be playing your hands before the flop. So just to give you guys an overview and to go over all of the things that we've already discussed previous to this section, play with the position strategies that I shared with you earlier on, and keep in mind that you can play certain hands in certain positions that you might not be able to play in other positions. So just keep following the starting hand charts that I suggested and that I gave you guys. This is going to ensure your best chance of being successful before the flop. So my tip number 1 for playing before the flop is not to limp in or call for the minimum ever, especially when you're playing like the lower tables like 1-2 or even up to like 2-5 tables, stuff like that, 1-3 no limit, these types of tables. There is no necessity for you to limp in or call for the minimum. You should always be either looking to pump up the pot or dump your cards, and I like to call the pump or dump. That's like the way I kind of remember it, and I think of it when I'm sitting on the poker table, because limping is a rookie mistake that will cause you to lose a lot of money in the long haul. And that's what gets the rookie players and the beginner players. So if you've been limping so far as often as you've been playing, you probably have a really good idea and a really good understanding of why you might not have been successful. That might be a huge reason why. Tip number 2 that I have for you guys is raise more if there are some limpers before you. So if people are calling for $2 and you raise the pot up to $8, it's not going to do much good because for them it's only $6 more to call. But let's say you have 3 people ahead of you that call, that's $6 in total, plus the original 8 that you would have initially raised. Now when you raise it to $14, they've got to think about it because now the raise is 7 times the initial money that they put in. So you should really be raising your big blind each time someone limps before you, as I had mentioned to you guys earlier. And your value is going to be much higher when you have limpers before you, since you can win a lot more money because they're increasing the pot size dramatically, so your pot equity is a lot higher in these situations. Tip number 3 is if you can get one-on-one situations when you do raise preflop, that's ideal. So you want to try raising more so that you can get one-on-one situations. If you constantly keep getting more players calling your raises before the flop, it just basically means that the table is very loose, and the only way to really push them out is by raising the bets. So they've got to really put the money where their mouth is, and that's sometimes a tougher thing to do for a lot of players. So that's your best bet in terms of getting one-on-one action, because the more people that go into a flop with you, the lower your odds of winning that pot becomes, and it's a lot tougher to win because there's so many multiples and variables out there that can potentially affect your hands. Tip number 4 for you guys is the only time when you should loosen your starting hand requirements is when you're playing on a table that isn't a full table or has 9 players. So if you're playing on a table with like 5 or 6 players or whatever the case is, then you can kind of loosen your starting hand requirements. Otherwise, you're going to be losing way too much money with blinds. But I highly recommend only playing at 8 to 10 player tables. My favorite's 9. So if you're sitting at a 9-player table but the amount of players drops to 5 or 6, you should still ease up on your preflop strategy and loosen your starting hand requirements until the table fills back up. And this oftentimes happens quite often in casinos and stuff like that. So that's something you guys want to be careful about. And finally, play more hands, because you're going to end up losing too much to the blinds if you're at a table with 5 or 6 players, whatever the case is. So a lot of people complain that, hey, when the game dropped down to 5 or 6 players, I didn't get to play a hand in 30 hands, and I ended up losing like $50 in blinds. Well, the reasoning for that is because you've got to loosen your hand strategies, and you've got to find a way to at least steal some small blinds and big blinds as you can, steal some pots here and there so that you're not losing all your money to just the blinds, because the blinds can have a huge effect on you and the rate can really kill you. And lastly, my final tip for you guys for playing hands before the flop is newer players think that they're tied down to any hand that they raise pre-flop. This is not the case, and it's a big rookie mistake. Some of the professionals and the more advanced players will tell you that when they get a hand like pocket aces and they go to the flop and they see something crazy, they're willing to let it go and they're willing to fold it. And I know a lot of rookie players say, I've never folded pocket aces ever in my life. And I can simply look at that and I can tell them, well, that's one of the main reasons why you're probably not so profitable or not as profitable as you should be. Because you can lose a lot of money if you're not willing to fold a hand, especially when you have a good feeling that you might be beat. An example of this might be you get pocket kings and the flop is ace 3-9. So your opponent is betting heavy, which means probably it's a good indication that they have an ace. They might have 3 of a kind or maybe even a 2-pair like an ace-9, whatever the case is. But more likely than not, you're beat. So you've got to fold your pocket kings, and you got to remember that patience is a virtue in poker, and you're eventually going to get another hand. And you just can't get greedy, and that's something that a lot of newer players have a tough time doing. But if you can kind of get out of your mind and really have the patience to throw away good hands when they aren't the winner, you're going to be extremely successful playing poker. That's it for this section. I'll catch you guys in the next one.